the 4th of July that year, Independence Day. I thought that was so significant. I got up, I opened up my email, and there was an email from Claire saying a miracle in the subject line. And I opened it up, and it was a foreword from the Dalai Lama. So I started to cry. I called Claire. We both cried. As you can imagine, it was just such a profound moment. And it was such a big thing that when I told my agent that I had a foreword from the Dalai Lama, she didn't believe me. And the publisher didn't believe her when she told them.
Hey there, it's Suzanne Oshima, your fellow sister on a mission to empower and inspire you through the twists and turns of midlife. And I'm here to help you transform it into your best life with the Life is Now podcast. And I'm super excited to dive into this new journey together. Debra Engle is the Executive Director of Story Summit Writer School and founder of Golden Tree Communications. She is the best-selling author of The Only Little Prayer You Need with a foreword by the Dalai Lama. Her other books, Let Your Spirit Guide Speak and Be the Light That You Are, have both received Nautilus Awards. Debra's debut novel, 20, is an Amazon bestseller praised for its spiritual inspiration. She offers coaching, A Course in Miracles classes, writing retreats, and mentoring in writing and publishing. Now, Deb, I love your story because you haven't always been an author. You were actually a copywriter, and you transitioned into becoming an author later in life. And so can you share your story with us to become an author?
Sure. Yeah. I dreamed of being an author from the time I was little because I always loved to read, loved books. I was one of those kids who would get a whole stack of books from the library and then just bury myself in my room and read and read. And so that was really a lifelong dream. And I was fortunate, that I did have a career as a writer and enjoyed it. I worked as a freelance writer, copywriter, as you said. I did a lot of marketing materials and I did some editing, and I did what a lot of freelancers do, which is anything, any job. You pick up any job that comes along that will help pay the bills. And so I enjoyed that. But, when I was getting to be in my early 40s, especially, I thought, I still have that dream. I'm grateful for what I've been able to do, but I so want to write books. So I was fortunate that I did get an opportunity to work on a book, to do a book when I was in my early 40s, and actually got an MFA at that time, Master of Fine Arts degree. And the book did fine. I was proud of it, but it was still other people's stories. I kind of felt like I was still the copywriter doing jobs for other people. And even though that was good, there was something in me, that I just wanted to express. And I wanted to share. I wanted to tell my stories. I wanted the freedom to just write, what really was meaningful for me, and maybe to inspire others to do the same thing. So it wasn't until another 10 years, when I was in my early 50s, that the opportunity literally just kind of dropped into my lap, because it was a day that I was struggling. I had done a lot of spiritual inquiry, and I had been divorced for about 15 years altogether. I had just recently gotten remarried. And, I just was having a day when I thought, things aren't going well. I keep being angry about the same old things. Old tapes are going through my mind. And so I just kind of asked Spirit, Source, Universe, for something that would help me. And what floated in was this little prayer that immediately helped me see things differently. And at first I kind of discounted it. I thought, well, this is helpful, but it's no big deal. But after 2 or 3 hours of really paying attention to it and realizing how powerful it was, I started writing about it. And wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. I mean, I couldn't really stop writing. So for several weeks, I found myself doing all of my freelance work, but I was traveling, I had several big projects, but I just kept writing this book because I really couldn't stop. And finally, I got to the point where the book was written. I wrote a proposal for an agent who I wanted to work with. And the day came when all of that was done, and I needed to send the proposal to my agent. Well, I was so filled with mixed emotions. Do I hit the button and send it? Do I not hit the button and send it? What if she likes it? What if my agent or the agent I wanted to have likes it? What if she doesn't like it? And finally, I just heard this inner voice that said, push the button and send it. So I did. And the next morning, I got up and there was a message from the agent saying that she loved the proposal. She wanted to take me on as a client. And that book was published a little over a year later. And that was 10 years ago. And it still is selling and selling and selling and selling. It's been translated into several languages. It's helped people around the world. And that was the book that made me feel like this is who I am. This is what I want to do, because I was no longer doing what other people, I wasn't fulfilling a contract from somebody else. Even as grateful as I had been for all of those contracts that I had gotten from people who hired me as a writer, this time it was me, saying, here's my experience. This is what I've learned. This is what I want to share. And if this can help you too, I just felt so good about being able to put something into the world like that. So, and I was probably, I was in my early 50s when that book came out. So since then, I've written other books, they've done well. And I've built a whole new writing career and publishing career and teaching career based on that one book that just happened actually on one of my worst days.
So, Deb, let me ask you a question, because here you were being a copywriter, and you were doing works for hire, right? And it was all marketing materials. And so it wasn't personally about you. And now you wanted to share about yourself and your experience. But that had to have been scary, because now here you are this whole time just doing these works for hire. And now you get to be vulnerable and open the curtains. Was that, how did you get, were you scared, and how did you get through that fear?
Yeah, I was scared. It's really a great question, because I think, there are a lot of people, a lot of us who want to write books or to do something artistic and to put our voices out there into the world. And it's exciting and it sounds so wonderful until we get to that moment of actually sending it out there. And then the terror sets in of, but people are going to know things about me that I've never told anyone. Or what if somebody doesn't like this book? What if I get criticism and people judge me? What if the book doesn't do well? What if I find I made mistakes in the book somewhere? All of those things show up. But it's mostly, like you're saying, that feeling of personal vulnerability, of I'm really putting myself on the line here. So I was scared. Fortunately, the book that I wrote was about getting past fear. So I used the techniques, that I was writing about, and found that they really did help. But it was one of those situations where you just have to weigh your fear against the potential fulfillment of your dream. And I think this is the thing that's so important for anyone who has a dream. There will be so many things that will try to stop you. Other people's opinions, people saying, well, who do you think you are that you could do this? Or, yeah, that's a hard business to go into. You really ought to, not quit your day job. Or it can be your own inner fears that say, I'm not good enough, or I'll never succeed. But I think it's just so important when those voices come up to go back to the beginning of your dream. Why is it important to you? Excuse me, why has it been important to you? Go back to your why and reconnect with that passion. And that will be so much more powerful than any of those naysayer voices that you might hear.
Right, because if you go back to your why, from what I've learned in my own experience and how I coach my clients, if you go back to your big, what I call the big why, is it'll pull you forward when you're feeling that fear, when you're feeling that doubt. And if you follow your passion, you can't go wrong, right?
Right, right. And I think that's why it's so personally empowering to follow our dreams, and to take those steps to complete our dreams. Because I think really for all of us, there's that moment where we could walk away or we can go forward. And when you choose to go forward, it's like your personal power just rises in that moment, because you realize I'm going to do this because this is what's right for me, not to make other people happy or to please others or to try to win accolades from others, but simply because this is what, wakes me up in the middle of the night and that I dream about and won't let me go. And I don't want to let it go either. I want to be true to myself and what I came here for.
Right. So now, Deb, you made it sound so easy to go from the writing process to sending it to the agent, the book proposal. But can you tell us some of the stumbling blocks? Because I've been trying to, full confession, I've been trying to write my own book, and it's a challenge. It's really a challenge. So can you share with us maybe a couple obstacles that you came up against along the way, and how you overcame and just pushed through those couple of obstacles to get to the point where you sent the book proposal to the agent?
Yeah, absolutely. There are definitely obstacles along the way. I mentor a lot of writers now, and some of the obstacles are just predictable. It's like everyone runs into these. Part of them, one of the biggest ones is just that self-doubt, that feeling of, am I good enough, or do I have anything to say? And boy, I bumped up against that over and over and over and over and over again. And so I would just go inside, connect with my spirit, with source, with my big why. I love that big why. And would, just get clear again about why I was doing this. And sometimes I would just talk to myself, and remember that I am good enough, that I do have skills, that I do have something to say. Sometimes we just need a pep talk from another person. We can pick up the phone to somebody who understands us, who will say, yes, keep going, who will be our cheerleader, not just because they like us and they're kind people, but because they really believe in our dream too, and they want to see us succeed. And then, there are just all of the logistical obstacles. I think, I had the advantage of having worked in publishing and in writing in different capacities for years. So I kind of knew how the system worked. But I have to say that publishing a book is a very different thing. You find a literary agent, then that agent finds an editor. It's a whole new industry. If you've been doing something outside of publishing, you're learning a whole new language, vocabulary, system, everything. And it's so funny about writing. If I were to say, well, I want to be a doctor, I wouldn't just think, oh, I can go take a class or two and I should know how to be a doctor. And yet that's kind of how it is with writing. Often people think, well, if I just take a class or two, then I'll be fine. Then I can write and I can get published. And I definitely recommend taking classes. But, I also recommend being patient with yourself and really congratulating yourself, acknowledging you for taking on something that's bigger than even just writing the book. Writing the book is everything. But then you network, you get to know people, you get to know how the system works, you get to know the ins and outs of publishing. I think sometimes people, they don't realize how big it really is. And I don't say that to try to discourage anyone. I think anyone who wants to write a book or fulfill any kind of a dream, go for it. But just don't set up expectations for yourself that it will be just simple or easy. The path can be, made clearer and clearer for you. I'm a total believer in that. But know that there will be things along the way to learn, and give yourself a lot of grace. It's a learning curve for sure.
So you already knew like the right literary agent because you worked in the industry. Is that correct?
Well, I had worked with a literary agent before, but that was because a friend of mine introduced that agent to me. Before then, I was clueless, about
Right.
how to find an agent. So networking is so important in this situation.
And because I do know a little bit about the publishing industry, and for those listening, you may or may not know, is for a long time, you either got published by a big publisher, right? Or you self-publish, right? And you went the route of which way?
The traditional publishing of working with an established publisher.
Uh-huh. And and I also know that not everybody chooses to have a literary agent. Um, why did you choose to work with a literary agent instead of just pitching directly to the publishers?
Yeah. It's changed a lot over the past few years. So when The Only Little Prayer You Need was published, I wanted a publisher because I felt like that would get me wider distribution. I had a feeling that this book needed to go, as far and wide as it possibly could. And if I self-published, I wouldn't know how to make that happen. I could get the book published, I could write the book, I could do the mechanics of getting it in print, but then the marketing and the distribution, I wanted the backing of a company to do that. I will say that things have changed a lot, over the past few years. Now there are so many different options. And even with self-publishing, you can work with companies or with distribution companies to help get your books into major stores in ways that didn't happen 10 years ago. You can also hybrid publish. Hybrid publishing has become really popular and really effective because then you've got some of the elements of self-publishing, but you've also got the backing of that hybrid company that will, again, help you with some of the promotion and marketing and distribution. So, for people who want to write a book, there are just more options today than ever. And it's in some ways easier to get a book into print if that's what you want to do.
So it sounds like if someone wanted to write a book, this is a good time.
It is, yeah. Back a few years ago, everybody was talking about the demise of publishing, the demise of hard copy books. Everything would be online, everything would be an ebook. People didn't read anymore. And as it turns out, that's just not true.
Yeah.
There are more books being published than ever, more books selling than ever, more venues for books being sold, and more people, telling their stories. And I think that's a fabulous thing.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I do know with this book, you had a very special person. Now, did he endorse it or did he write the foreword?
He wrote the foreword. Yep.
Right. So can you share with the ladies this? I think this story is amazing because here's your first book. No offense, Deb, but no one knows who Deb is, right? She doesn't have a track record.
Right.
And tell us the story about how you got this person to write your foreword.
Right. So I was fortunate to know someone named Claire Elizabeth Terry, who lived in Barcelona. And Claire had put together a book of essays. And I was fortunate to have one of my essays included in that anthology. So Claire and I got to know each other and we became friends. And when it came time for me to get endorsements for this book, my agent had said, if you can get a few celebrity endorsements, that will help me sell it to a publishing company. So I thought, well, who do I know who knows someone? And I thought of Claire. So I contacted Claire and I asked her if she would help me find an endorsement or two. And I sent her the manuscript. She loved the manuscript and she said, sure, she would do that. So we got on a Zoom or we connected and she asked, so who would you like me to reach out to? Who would you like to get an endorsement from? I mentioned 2 or 3 names and I thought I was dreaming pretty big, but she said, well, how about the Dalai Lama? And I just laughed because I thought, well, sure, that would be great. The Dalai Lama, this, the greatest spiritual leader in the world. Sure, let's go after that. Because it is a spiritual book, she was on the right track, but I thought, well, there's no way. Well, unbeknownst to me, Claire sent the manuscript and a request off to the Dalai Lama's assistant. She had been in touch with them for the anthology of essays that she had put together. So she reached out to them, and I didn't know that she did this, but on the 4th of July that year, Independence Day, I thought that was so significant. I got up, I opened up my email, and there was an email from Claire saying a miracle in the subject line. And I opened it up, and it was a foreword from the Dalai Lama. So I started to cry. I called Claire. We both cried. As you can imagine, it was just such a profound moment. And it was such a big thing that when I told my agent that I had had a foreword from the Dalai Lama, she didn't believe me. And the publisher didn't believe her when she told them, because it just seemed so, so out of the realm of anything expected. But, it was perfect for the book. He really got the vision of the book and the message of it. And so, the front of the book says, forward by His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. And no doubt, that has had a big influence in the book continuing to sell all these years. It felt blessed in so many ways from the very beginning. But getting that endorsement was one of the moments when I realized, okay, there is a power behind this, so much greater than me. And I was just grateful beyond words, and still am, to just receive, to let the story, the message flow through. I'm just grateful that I got to be the one to write it down.
Oh my gosh. I love that part of your story because it's so amazing. And it just proves, I mean, you're living proof that we all need to dream big, shoot for the stars, because you never know what can happen and what can come our way. But let me ask you a question about that, because did fear arise when Claire said, "How about the Dalai Lama?" Like, "Oh my God, that's so big. Like, if I fail, I'm going to feel like, how did you get through that fear?"
Yeah, definitely I felt that. And, I think it was that feeling that we so often feel of, do I deserve that? Do I deserve to have the Dalai Lama endorse my book? And, and I think part of it was that I didn't really think it was going to happen. I didn't really know that Claire was going to follow up on it. So I just didn't take it seriously, which actually was probably a good thing, because in that moment I just let it go, and I wasn't carrying any negative energy about it. I wasn't carrying any doubt, because energy matters. And if I had cast a lot of doubt on it, or worried about it, or been anxious about it, maybe that would have interfered. But as it was, I just, kind of let go of the whole thing. And then, whew, there it was. And I've found that to be true for so many things.
And the vision I got, Deb, when you were saying that, is that you just put it out to the universe and you just let it go and said, if it comes back, it comes back. If it doesn't, I'm not going to even think about it. It's out there, right? And look what happened. And you're right, is, if you had put any sort of doubt in that, it might not have come back, right?
Right.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So what, Deb, I would love to know 3 things that you learned from this whole experience, because, you know, you started this later in life. And I love that about you, is that you didn't say, "Oh gosh, it's too late for me." So, and you worked through self-doubt and publishing your book. And I would love to know 3 things that you learned from this whole experience.
Yeah. Well, I think that loving detachment, that we just talked about, that's one of them. One of the things is truly, hold on to that dream, but don't hold on to it so tightly that you're trying to control it. Because so often the way that it will be fulfilled may be so different than any scenario that you could come up with. So I'm a big believer in vision boards and visualizing and manifesting. But there's kind of that fine line between seeing and feeling what you want, but also saying to the Holy Spirit, to universe, God, source, creator, angels, guides, whatever is in your vocabulary, also saying to them, you know better than I do how to bring this into my life. And so I turn it over to you. I do that a lot with, any kind of challenges in my life. I don't necessarily know how to deal with this or how to fix it or make it better, but I know you do. And so I turn it over. So that detachment, that letting go, it comes with a lot of trust, a lot of faith, But I have learned, that our job is to be joyful, and everything else we turn over to our guides and angels and spirit and the universe and trust. And it doesn't always work. We still run up against obstacles and stumbling blocks, but more and more and more, the more we can focus on making peace our goal and turning over everything else, the easier things will become. So that was one. Networking, definitely played a huge, huge role. It was the fact that I reached out to Claire, that I was willing to send this to an agent that I hadn't worked with. We've been in touch a little bit, and I knew I wanted to work with her, but I didn't know how she would respond. And writers in particular tend to be pretty introverted people. I'm one of the shyest people on the planet. So networking does not come easily to me, but networking, everything starts with a conversation. We need to reach out to people because for the most part, despite any evidence to the contrary, most people want to help you. People, if they know what your dream is and they know how important it is to you and they can be of help somehow, people will come forward and help you in amazing ways. So reach out, get over any fear that you might have about that, to reach out to others. And then just really stay open, for whatever comes along, without judging the timing or the circumstances or what path it's on or what path you're on. Just really unplug from any of those old beliefs that might keep you stuck in thinking that it's too late, you're too old, you don't have the resources, you don't have the time, you'll never be good enough. All of those beliefs that we can take on, and we don't even know necessarily how much they're limiting us. I do a visualization where I see an old-fashioned switchboard with all of these limiting beliefs plugged into it. And one by one, I just unplug them. Yeah.
I love that visual.
Yeah. And I thank them. I thank them because I know that they helped me get to where I am now. They served a purpose, have no regrets, but in this moment, they no longer serve me, and I unplug from them and just open up to what's possible now. And what's possible now is so far beyond your wildest dreams. So just let yourself be open to everything you want and more.
Oh, I love that. And I know you have something else planned in the future. What's your next big project that you're working on?
Yeah, I actually have 2 books of my own that I'm working on. One about spirituality and writing. So it includes some of the things that we're talking about. And then one about illness and how actually the gifts of illness, because we all face health challenges. I had Lyme disease last year about this time. And but I was able to see, through a lot of grace, when I got better, I saw there was not just healing of my body, but healing on other levels there. But it was because, I was really led to see the gifts in that illness rather than the fear, to meet it with love rather than fear. That's what the book is really all about. How do we meet illness with love rather than fear? And then I have a couple of books that I'm working on with other people. Plus now I'm the director of a writing school, an online writing school. So we have lots and lots of programs and classes that we offer. And it's just, when I say that bigger things are possible than you can even dream of, I'm saying that from personal experience. I just am grateful every day for what I get to do.
Oh my goodness, Deb, you are so amazing. I love everything that you're working on, and I love how you really you live by what you write about, right? You don't write about it and don't live your life that way. This is how you live your life, and it's so aligned with you and everything that you stand for, and I think that's amazing. So, Deb, how can people find you?
They can go to my website. It's debraengle.com. DebraEngle.com.
Hey there, if you enjoyed this podcast and are ready to transform midlife into your best life, visit SuzanneOshima.com to become an insider and join my email list. As an insider, you'll be the first to know about new episodes and gain access to exclusive content that empowers and inspires you on your midlife journey today and in the future.